It's now Sunday. Yesterday was really bad. I didn't get a chance to pick up the camera again because I went around all four corners, I vacuumed, let them out. I moved on to pedal bleeding and promptly blew out both rear wheel cylinders. I think you can see there's a rather large puddle of brake fluid on the floor still. So it turned into full-blown panic mode, breaking the rears down, getting the wheel cylinders out and replaced so we didn't lose so much fluid. The good news is they're now working, fully functional. All the brakes work. We have really good pedal. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I think you can get really good pedal. Comes up hard, stays hard. So I'll have to drive it a little bit, but brakes are good. I think you can get a better idea what the front suspension now looks like. I'll lower it down here. I just didn't get a chance yet because the transfer case isn't back in it. And I'm pretty happy with the front end with the new suspension. Like I said, I'm probably going to have to adjust the alignment on it. And then in the middle of that disaster, I went to install the clutch hydraulic line, only to discover the one from Napa doesn't fit my slave cylinder. I mean, it should. It's for this truck, but it didn't. And that ended up turning into me being angry. So then I said, well, I want an easy win. I'm going to just go ahead and finish bypassing the fuel selector valve. And so I worked on that for a little bit. And all I did was heat up and insert some barbs in the hard lines on either end and just put soft line in between. And despite the fact that there were two white lines and then a green and a blue line coming in, because there's two tanks recall, and a white line and a green line going out, and the green line goes to the fuel pump, the truck doesn't run now. And it's not getting gas. We confirmed it with starting fluids. So somehow the green line must actually be the vent line or the return line, and the white line must be the supply line. I couldn't have it hooked up to the wrong tank because it just would have been gushing gasoline everywhere. So I'm going to open this up, and if there's a bunch of gas in my return line, I'm going to have to flip some things around. So let's see. You can sit right here, I think, and see what's going on. Oh, and you can probably hear the battery charger running in the background. I've picked up a nice little parasitic somehow. Not really sure how that happened. I'm not going to crisscross in there. Yeah, I end up having to change it. Yeah, so I've picked up a parasitic. I'm not on my electrical system. I think it's because I have several things unhooked down here, because it did not have that problem before. Oh, now you can't see what I'm doing. How about now? Can you see? Good? Okay. So I'm hoping that when I plug everything back in, the parasitic goes away. Otherwise, I'll just have to put a disconnect switch on it. All right, I got more room to work it. I need to put it together, so take it apart. Yep. It's not been this weekend. It's not been good. Nope. No gas in there. They're not hooked up backwards. In which case, I must have the supply line connected to the pump. So why aren't we getting gas? Oh, did the in-tank pump die? That would be wonderful. mean, wouldn't be entirely surprising. That's kind of how this whole exercise has been. I could hear this pump running from the cab yesterday. Now let's see. Not a whole lot of gas in that line, is there? Alright, I don't know if the battery's going to be strong enough to run the fuel pump or not. Let's go find out. You guys tell me which one has gas in it, because neither one of them had much for fuel. So, place your bets. Do I have it hooked up backwards? Or did the in-tank pump die? Looks like it's hooked up correctly. Okay, that's interesting. All right, put it back together then. Trust but verify, as they say. Well, at least we know it's hooked up correctly. So for the record, all the white lines are your return lines. Green line is the front tank. Blue line is the rear tank. I did do it correctly. I wonder if actually I don't know. I genuinely don't know what the problem is. Maybe it just didn't run long enough to pick up the gas. I mean, you could hear this pump running. Now what's weird is there was no fuel in this line, and I had to cycle the key several times. So, as I said, I do have a parasitic from these wires being disconnected. I wonder if the problem is it's not letting the fuel pumps run during cranking. Alright, more to come.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Well, if you've never seen inside of a transfer case, this is what one looks like. You're looking back to front right now. The Borg-Warner transfer cases are sort of notorious for oil pump failures. And I'll show you as I put it back together. The reason I split it, though, was that it was stuck in 4 low, and what had happened was, again, you'll see when I put it back together, this shift plate here, when you move your floor shifter, this plate rocks, and you can see the groove here where the range select rides. Then your 4-wheel drive rides up here, and there's a spring that pushes it down. And basically what had happened was they jumped off this cog, and they were stuck. You could rotate this cog, but it wasn't grabbing, here's a shift collar, it wasn't grabbing the dowels that actually move them up and down. So I don't think I did this. I didn't break this by slamming it into gear gently when the clutch was out. I think I just put the nail in the coffin. What I ended up doing, turn this around a little bit, I think you can see there's now a washer and a spring washer in here to take up the slack. And now this doesn't have, it still has some movement because it has to rotate, but it was moving like 4 or 5 degrees or something. I mean, it was coming in contact with this shoulder on the case is basically what was actually limiting it before. So we'll know more once I get everything stacked back up inside, but I've taken 1/2 to 2/3 of the side-to-side play out of it. So I think that's probably going to be enough. If it's not, I can't do anything more with this. And these, by the way, I'm not sure how they come out, because you can kind of see down in there, there's a shoulder on the other side of that bolt head. So I think the only way to take it out is to actually completely remove the seal, and then you can rock it enough to get it out. But the seals are fine, the bearings are fine, so it must not have been without oil pressure very long. And the way these work, your pickup tube sets here down on the bottom, and then there's a pump in the shaft. Here's the bore. They're just it's an elliptical ring, and these slide back and forth and make oil pressure. So what's happened, and this is a pretty common failure for these. There's a retainer that goes in here to keep this oil pump housing locked in place so it can spin on your main shaft. And what happens is that breaks, that retainer clip fails over time, and then it'll shear off the nose of the oil pump ring. And if we look, sorry, I just got it out of the parts washer. If we look top down, you can see it's not the same thickness side to side, so it slides those ears back and forth, and that's what makes the oil pressure. It's basically a really robust hydraulic pump until that gets broken. So I think what I can do, and here's the pickup tube, and the filter's not even plugged up considering how much freaking RTV the last person used. So I think what I can do is weld, since this is steel, it's cast, but it's steel. And it's probably pretty hard steel. It's probably tool steel. So I think I can weld a fine thread nut to this orifice, seal it up carefully, and then screw in a barb, a hose barb, to reconnect this. And honestly, that's not going to be a whole lot weaker than, it's not structural. Okay, this doesn't retain the hose. The ear that I'll have to remake for that slot's what's actually retaining the nose. So then once I get everything lined up, here's what's left of the ear. There should have been a triangle piece coming out. Sorry, I don't have enough hands. Should have been a triangle piece. Shouldn't be bent over like that. And then it goes and locks in to this slot here that's completely sheared off. You can see where it actually took a chunk, I think. So we're gonna have to make up a different piece, because I think that actually did rip part of the case out of it when it failed. Maybe that's what actually failed. It sat there and vibrated against that case and then machined its way through it. So it's gonna be a little bit of repair here, but that's how it goes. So I'm gonna go to the store, see what I can scrounge up, and hopefully we can get this back together today. Okay, so I made a trip to the hardware store, which I generally don't advocate buying car parts from, but we just needed some hose pieces. Got a piece of steel on the end here. I'm going to be able to weld it onto the pump eccentric, and I think we're going to be golden. Just have to put it together. It does fit in the end of the pickup tube nicely. I'll just put a hose clamp on that. Cleaned up the shmoo and the magnet, and I think we're good. I'm just going to have to make a new retainer bracket over here once I get this piece made up, and hopefully that should fix the problem. Not a very pretty weld, as expected. I did not have the heat up real high because I did not want to burn into this and warp the surface, and I was trying like heck to keep the heat on the pipe thread side, but I think she's sealed up well enough to work. I mean, it's just an oil pump. It doesn't need a great seal. So hopefully we can get it back together here and come up with a next plan for the madness. So let's see if I can set you up where you can watch. I'll set you here for a minute. Alright. Let's see, we need this guy. Go in like so. Like that. And we need this guy to go like that. rod in. And let's see, it's in the two-wheel drive high position. So this guy needs to rotate around. Have it upside down? Yes. Hang on. Hold, please. Nope, I had it right the first time. He goes like this. And you go in there. And that goes down there. And it needs a little WD. If I was smart, I'd probably put assembly lube on it. It's just got a little suction. Down you go. There it goes. Alright, now this can slide up and down. Yep, okay. Now we need the one that says front top, which it really means outside. Okay. That one goes on like that. And these little guys go in, so you got a spring that goes in the middle of the bore. Going to be exciting. And each of these has a flat spot. You want one pointed up, one pointed down. So go in here. There we go. Because they ride on the plates, and they are actually what center everything up. So one's up. Can't see it, but one's down, I promise you. I need that gear you're setting on in a minute. Then we're gonna drop this guy over them. We're gonna squeeze them together against that spring, and they're gonna kind of snap home. And we're gonna pull this plate up. Hopefully the weld is not gonna be in the way. Get everything lined up here. Okay. The welds are going to clear. Check the top plate here. Do the same. It has a cam girdle that it wants to ride on. Let me put a little shmoo on that. Uh-oh. That's good. Okay, sorry about that. The camera died and my wife was mowing grass, so you couldn't have heard me anyway. But let me zoom in here with the old manual zoom. It is reassembled. We have the hose bib right there going down into the filter, which I did clean. And we made a new elbow to go in that slot. And we welded up a really nice heavy duty plate to the existing plate. So it should be good to go for a while. Got the spring set in here for the back half of the case. We did run it through the gears. Everything is functional. I don't know what gear it's in currently. Looks like 4 low. So yeah, we're good. Now we're gonna put it back together, get some RTV on it. Unlike the previous person, we are not gonna use the whole tube because they gave us a tube. And hopefully get it back in the truck here today. Alright, I was going to try to do this the other day, and the camera battery was dead. Not sure how I feel about GoPros. They just don't last very long. That's probably in the way. Sorry, you're sitting on the bench. So I decided to break this up into a couple of parts, And this is probably going to be the end of part 2. I didn't film an outro for part 1 because I didn't know I was doing that until I looked at the computer the other day and saw how much video I had. So let's take a quick minute to review. So front springs, done. Brakes, done. Brake lines, done. Shocks, clutch. Trailer hitch has been ordered. I got to do an oil change. I fixed the ignition switch. Bed floor, liner. I'm not going to do bed rails. Fuel pumps have been done 3 times now. I think Napa had a bad batch of fuel pumps. Running boards, maybe rear glass. I need to order the gasket. I've painted the frame. Speedometer's still broken. I'm not sure why. The speedo cable's fine. Blower motor doesn't do anything. Need to put the rear bumper back on. Power steering pump. So yeah, that's about half the list. I will try to add this up and put it here. I'm not sure to do with my hands. So the next order of business then is to take it out and drive it a little bit. As I said the other day, new front springs have absolutely destroyed the camber. I don't know if you can see it on film, but you can see it in person. So I think they just need to get bedded in. I do have a parasitic somewhere drawing the battery down that I did not have before. So not sure how I did that. And I'm gonna lower it down here and clean the cab out. And we'll just call it the end of this video. Like you said, I need to put the bumper back on. It's right there. The brackets were damaged. It must have been rear-ended at some point, which is why it was tweaked down the way it was. I was going to build a trailer hitch, but I actually finally managed to get a good deal on a category 4 bolt and drill. Now, I noticed that my frame is pretty cut here, so that might be interesting. And this hexagonal thing here is where the bumper bracket was mounted with that frame insert, so we're going to have to figure something out for that. It's not going to be a tow bumper anymore, so I think we can probably come up with something. As per usual, it has been a few days. I did get the bumper on, all new grade 8 hardware. It's not really torqued yet. I just put it on tight so I could make up the difference in the bends in these brackets by just letting these bolts that would have been in those frame inserts float down a little bit. And you can just see the triangle poking through. I'm half tempted, now that I have it set where I want it, to take these back apart, take this washer off, and actually grind the frame rail down and weld the washer to it. But I think it'll be okay once I torque it up. There's plenty of friction there between the pieces. And it's only for stepping on. This isn't for towing anymore because I bought a trailer hitch for it. It is a, I believe, draw tight. Oh, that's not helpful. There we go. Oh, hang on. No ejecto seats. Yes, it is a draw tight. So I'm going to have to drill a few holes in the frame, it looks like, and maybe get a little more rust jacking out. That's still pretty bad there. Knock some more out of this side and finish bending those tabs up, but I don't actually know if they're going to be in the way or not. So we'll get her straightened out. So I'll bring you back here in a few once I get the trailer hitch up in position and clamped. All right, looks like the bumper's still a little tweaked. I think the bumper actually is bent. And you probably can't see too good because you're looking right into that light. But we got her hanging here on a couple of clamps. So all we gotta do now is drill 3 holes, bolt it up solid. And yeah, the trouble is, it's not gonna have, I don't know if you can see on camera, a whole lot of meat here. They had some pretty big inserts, so I'll see what it looks like. If I'm not happy with it after I get it sucked up tight with the bolts, I'll come back and clean this edge up and put a weld bead on it. Generally, I wouldn't advocate welding to a frame, but this frame is not in very good shape anyway, so we'll see how it looks once I get it all bolted up. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take our 1/2-inch drill bit, and if this wants to drill, we'll just run the whole thing. If not, I'll have to come back, and I grabbed a couple of smaller ones, and I'll just step up through them. But we gotta get it centered first. So there you can see, got a good center. So now we'll just step up through the bits. Put you right here. Or get smacked by the drill. These are those blocks I was talking about. And I think, yeah, they're meant to spread the load out on the frame rail. All right, let's put a couple ugly duggies on that. What do you say? Click. All right, wash, rinse, repeat. All right, seems to have tightened up pretty good. Had to put these aft ones in perpendicular, but you can see frame rail's a little wider there. And it seems like it went in pretty tight even on this side that wasn't great. So I'm gonna get my torque wrench and run all these bolts down to about 80 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna work on the lights, and I got a really neat solution for that. But you'll just have to wait a minute. All right. Everything is torqued up here. So now, if you can see, I have unhooked the bed to chassis harness, and I have purchased, this guy right here, which is a ready-made splice to cut in your 4-pin. So all you have to do is match up the male and the female, and these are vehicle specific, so make sure you get the one for your truck. If you're doing an older truck, obviously the newer ones are pre-wired, and there, voila, 4-pin harness. Now, I don't know, it's grounded to something. There's a lot of grounds intercepted there. But we're not stopping there, because none of my trailers have 4-pin. They're all 7-pin. So I also got this guy. Let's see how easy it is to open with one hand. It's got staples. Hold on. You can look at me for a minute. And it should, oh, that's neat. You get male and female 4-pin connector still. That's nice. So this guy, whoa, sorry about that. I forgot I was holding the camera for a second. There we go. See? Yeah. So this guy's gonna plug in here, and you'll notice it comes with its own dedicated ground wire, which is good. I don't know if I necessarily trust the ground on the body of this truck. And then we got 3 more wires, one of which is the wrong color. China, if you're listening, North America does not use the European color codes. Please stop making products for North America with the European color codes. So this should be auxiliary, which will be the pin in the middle. This should be your brake signal. This should be 12 volt hot for your charging circuit, which I will need to install on this truck because my dump trailer needs it. I don't know if I'll ever run a brake controller. That'll be a project for another day. But the question is, where am I going to put this jabber? And I've never owned a truck bad enough that I thought about doing it there. But I really am on this one because it's old enough that I don't think I'm going to stress over it. So let's see what it looks like here. And then we'll go get the torch. Actually really liking that. It's a really nice big box there. Yeah. All right, let me go figure out what I want to lay out here and get the torch, or maybe the plasma cutter, and burn that hole out the rest of the way. I'll have you back in a few. Boy, I'll tell you what, those Milwaukee hole dozers, they work pretty good, even if you don't have a pilot hole. So yeah, that's gonna work. It'll slide in. It's obviously hot. I totally torched it out. And I'm gonna let it cool off tonight. We'll get this guy installed tomorrow. Show you how I'm gonna run the 12 volt hotline. Check the pin out because it's got the mark of the beast with the color codes here. And in case I didn't say it in the last video, the last segment, these little brackets that come with them, let me just show you how to properly install that. Junk. Ain't nowhere near thick enough metal. On other trucks in the past, I've welded boxes to the trailer hitches. This one, I think, just gonna go with this. So, all right. Got it all bolted in here this morning. I think it actually looks pretty good. Wish I'd done this to some other trucks over the years. That's a much nicer way to install that. This one actually came with like number 12 bolts or fasteners. Really nice, snug. This is like the least amount of flex I've ever seen in one. So all we have to do is come under here, get you where you can see what's going on. And we're gonna take our lead here, put a little dielectric grease on it, just to make sure my video gets lots of hate from the internet pedants. Connect it to the male end, and there we go. No splicing required, and we should have turn signals and running lights to a trailer. Now, as I said in the last segment, you wouldn't need this 7-pin connector necessarily. I only put one in because all of my trailers are 7-pin. And I was very surprised to see that it also came with a standard 4-pin connector, which I can just leave here on the bumper in case I ever tow a trailer that for whatever reason has one. And I'm putting this zip tie on here, not for any particular reason, but since we're using kind of a flimsy connection here, I don't want it to come apart. Now, I have gone ahead and cleaned up a ground hole on the frame. And the reason I want to ground on the frame instead of to one of these studs back here on the back of this connector is I don't know how good my bumper is actually grounded. So I just went ahead and made a new one on the frame. And I know my frame ground is good because there's a strap to it. I like these tech screws. They're self-drilling, but I find on frame steel you want to still drill a pilot hole. A lot of people don't like them. And I think that's because, oh, loud noises, cover your ears. they don't do this step right here. You really want to coat it in this stuff. Well, if you live in the Rust Belt. I guess if you're in Arizona, you're probably not worried about it. And there. Now, we have really worked the dielectric coating in underneath the screw. We're just gonna finish coating it. And I actually usually come back and there we go. I'll put a little spray paint on this, a little black spray paint. So all of the exposed metal and brass ends up being painted. That usually makes them last for a long time. I don't know, this is kind of a cruddy truck. So we're gonna grab all this excess wire here that we don't need. I'm gonna grab this piece of wire. I'm trying to get some cable management going on here. There was at one time a connector right here. You can see the hole in the frame still. Let's see if I can get that in a bundle and get it locked off. Oh, here's the rest of my license plate light. Oh well, that's been deleted since I owned the truck. So, there we go. All nice and pretty. So now we just have to deal with these three guys. So as I said, this should be auxiliary, and this should be 12 volt, and this should be brake signal. So the battery on this truck and the relay are on the passenger side. So I'm gonna take and run some wire up the passenger frame rail here, I think, and tie it in on the other side. I am gonna delete these uninsulated butt connectors. They, all right, so we're top side now. Let's see if I can get you to sit there. Yeah, okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up this terminal here. We're gonna go ahead and take out these two wires that were feeding somebody's boombox. They did actually use inline fuses, which is what this guy is. So there's a 30 amp fuse in here. And I like the blade style fuses because they're readily available. Those glass fuses, those old style bus fuses, they can be, whoops, wrong size, a little bit difficult to find. I was just going to reuse their wiring from the boombox, but I thought I want to take this apart and put a little battery terminal spray on it, just in case. And the reason I'm not just tapping the battery directly is that, you know, every time you change your battery, then you would have to deal with all these wires. So let's get their stack out of here. And see, this is what I was afraid of. There is a little bit of gunk building up here. So let's just go ahead and take all this apart. Get a little steel wool. Usually I want. Let's just go ahead and take all this gunk up. This oxidation. Get it nice and shiny. In case you're wondering, the battery you're sitting on has the negative terminal disconnected. Has been so for several days at this point. Turns out, I think you'll recall in the first video, I said, oh, the voltage gauge isn't working. Well, that's not a big deal. I think the alternator is charging. And I think I put a spoiler alert or a foreshadowing joke there. It was not, in fact, charging. And it's probably been on fire, actually. The output terminal is really melty. I'll show you here in a minute. Or I guess I can show you right now. You're looking right at it. So, yeah. No bueno. So I'm going to have to order a new alternator and new ends. And that is, I'm sure, because of somebody's boombox system in the cab. It's not connected anymore. The only thing left is the amp, and I'm sure the reason that got left is because it's blown. But yeah, be very careful with your boom boxes. Ideally, we would not be tapping at the same location as the alternator is supplying, because that's probably how it got melted. All right. So this is just battery terminal sealer. And we're going to put the battery cable back on top. I'm just going to spray both sides of these. Reinstall them in no particular order. Oops, that needs to be on the other side of that wire. Okay, and then we'll put our new tap in. And we will also spray, whoops, hopefully I can get the camera. The battery terminal, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this guy goes underneath everything, yep. And that should, oh, let's clean the nut a little bit. It's pretty gross too. Just ensure that everything is getting good voltage. Actually, these are all lined up. Nice and pretty. Okay, look. Now all we got to do is find a convenient spot to butt splice these two together. So I'm going to lay that wire down just like that. Pick up cutters. And going over here a little bit more. Want to come over top of the blower motor. On the fender. I mean, those other ones have been laying there all this time. This isn't an AC truck, so we actually have quite a bit of room on this one. Strip my wire. Whoops. Oh, look, another tap. That's also... Oh, no, that's a vacuum line. We're just going to put that back where we found it. This is an insulated butt connector, and it actually has the heat shrink built right in. Find the top so I can get it lined up correctly on my crimper. And I have found that with these Chinesian controlled butt connectors, you're almost better off going down one size each time. So this is 12 gauge wire. And you see how that just slipped right in there? This is supposed to be only for a max of 14. So what does that tell you? Same here. You can see over there. That stuff in there is tight. Do a little tug test. There we go. Now, I'm not going to have 12 volts at the moment because I have the negative terminal unhooked from the battery. So we get this zip tied in. I'm just going to leave the other wires. They're not hurting anything. Abandoned in place. Now, if I do go back and add a trailer brake controller, I will probably just put a breakout wire in and go to a fuse panel. Alright. Got my diagram here. Got the tester. Battery's reconnected. So, if I turn it, yeah, there we go. Alright, lower left should be ground. Show me ground. Yep. Top right should be 12 volt. It is indeed. And that sound indicates I do not have a ground. This should be open circuit. Yep. That's running light, so there should be continuity. That's ground. That's trailer brake, open circuit. Yep. Continuity. Yep. Alright, let me go turn on the left turn signal. Okay, right turn signal. Okay, and lights. And we're good. I'm showing 12.1 volts on the battery, which is slightly more than the lights. That's all there is to it. Complete 7-pin installation. Well, if I put the battery chart or the brake wire in, and it's done. So this truck's ready to tow. As I said though, it needs an alternator, So it's staying here. I also need wipers, tires, clean it. And I got a couple other things on the list still, but just sitting right here. We can go ahead and scratch off trailer hitch and wiring. So here we are, alternator day. We did go ahead and put on some nice used diggers. What are they? Goodyear knockoffs? Workhorse. So that should be good, because I'm totally going to be out of money on this budget for any kind of locker beyond a Lincoln locker. And I don't know if I want to do that to something I have any intention of driving on the road. We'll see. Anyway, there's been some meltingness to my alternators. So I ordered a new plug as well. It's in the box over there. Boy, this thing is just sad. And I ordered a new voltage regulator wire. This one is still functional. And of course, my new one hasn't shown up yet. But let's go ahead and get this alternator off and a new one on. I always like to draw out my belt routing diagram because for whatever reason, that sticker is always gone. I don't know if people just peel it off or what, but it's always gone. So, looks like 2 bolts, and we'll have it out. We'll get the new one in. Show you how I'm going to swap this harness out, because I don't believe that thing's functional. I couldn't believe it would be. And yeah, get it running so I can actually move the thing around. This thing dies fast without an alternator. And then we can actually take it out for a little bit of a road test. Make sure the brakes are good and the clutch is good. Did end up having to bleed a little bit more air out of the brakes and the clutch after I got back last time. So, and hopefully the third fuel pump is still functional. I don't know if this is going to come through on camera. Oh, that's on piece of paper, hold on. But for anyone thinking maybe I should just redo the voltage regulator, listen to those bearings. That is not healthy. Hold on, something's wrong here. That plug wasn't up on top on the other one. And I don't even see a plug for my voltage regulator. So I probably need to clock something. Alright, now they're the same. You just take these 3 screws out, rotate the clock. It's not ideal because I think they actually do set preload on those bearings when they put them together, but you know, God forbid the aftermarket get anything right. I probably should have said battery is disconnected. You don't need to worry about all the gouges in the belt. Alright, so I got my new wiring harness here. Crimped on some uninsulated terminals, threw some heat shrink on it, and I'm just going to come in here and one at a time I'm going to cut these wires, strip them, and crimp them. And then we'll throw some heat shrink on it. Or melt the heat shrink, I should say. The heat shrink's already on it. And the reason that I am using uninsulated butt connectors is that the 2 big wires were quite a bit bigger than any of my insulated and pre-heat shrink installed butt connectors. So, I have to do this one a little bit the hard way. Let me do this way. But that's okay, because with these big chunky connectors, this is a much better way to guarantee you have a good positive connection because you can tug test it and you can see it. Alright, get these guys down over those connectors. That should run the gun up enough. You just want to go until the glue comes out. Now we get to play a fun game called Does My Fuel Pump Still Work? It has been more than a minute. There is always the chance that it does not. Now, unfortunately, I was not able to get my new voltage regulator in. And it also is not in great shape, but it doesn't look like it's been on fire. So we'll just go ahead and plug it back in. And I will be replacing it. I think you can see the wires are very heavily damaged. But I don't think they're broken, at least. So, we should be some schmooing the hole down there. Now we got a little extra wire we'll have to manage somehow, but that's not the end of the world. He's not healthy. All right, tools out of the way here. See if it's fixed. Now remember, before the battery gauge did not work. Still doesn't work. Yeah, that's concerning. There you go, 14.66. So it is charging, it is working. And that whiny bag of marble sound you hear, I'm pretty sure is either the idler or the power steering pump. Brakes for days. Tires are riding nice. They're not even that loud. Oh yeah, we got brakes. Dang, they'll put you through the windshield. Give her a brake test here when there's not a car behind me. Clutch feels better. Power steering pump still whine and beat the band. And no, it's not low, I just put fluid in it. Oh yeah, she shifts nice. Hey, with a working fuel pump, got lots of power. All right, come over the hill here, we'll do a brake test. I'm holding on to the camera so I don't launch you. It actually rides nice. Get out of the middle of the road. Good Lord. Some people, I tell you. Anyway, brake test. Oh yeah, brakes for days. Well, that first gear is actually pretty deep. It's like driving my old diesel. All right. Oh yeah, nice. Throw some crap in the bed here. It wasn't trying to pull through the parking brake. Oh yeah. Yeah, it locks it up. All right, I'll call that a successful test of everything. All right, it is done. As you can see, it's outside. We did end up putting a new power steering pump in and the new lines to get it to stop leaking. I don't know where the actual problem was. The bearing was pretty bad in the pump, so we ended up just doing a whole new one. I don't know if you can read this. It's a little bright out here, but that says new engine 8060. Don't know what that number means, but it does say October 2004. So I think I got really lucky, actually. And that's probably why it runs so good. We cleaned out the interior. I do have a really nice classic saddle blanket seat cover coming for it. I guess those things are unobtainium now. Ended up ripping the dash apart to get the speedo to work, but it does work now. They had installed, I think, the wrong cable. According to the parts book, the four-wheel drive 5-speed manuals take an 8-foot cable, and they had a 6-foot cable in it. Luckily, I had ordered an 8-footer. Put my used window in. I ended up ordering a seal for a 2-piece window, and I think you can see there's supposed to be a piece of trim in here. I don't know how in the world you would ever get that in. My guess is you're supposed to do it before you pull the window into the cab, but the first thing you take out when you take one apart is the trim piece. So I think that's what threw me. I'm not a glass man, but it's a farm truck. It's fine. It's sealed up. I did put some schmoo in it just in case. Yeah, that job sucked. I ended up having to buy this seal because this is a lot softer, as you can see. I got someone off of Rock Auto, and it was just, I mean, it was harder than a coffin nail in January. So we fought and fought and fought, and we just could not get it to flip inside. So yeah, it's done. 2 issues. The blower motor doesn't work, but I don't need heat for another 6 months, so that's a future Nick problem. And the gas tank I filled up for the first time, and then came back in my shop to find 5 gallons of gas on the floor. So there must be a hole near the top of the tank. Again, future Nick problems, because I'm not dropping a fuel tank when it's full of gas. So we're going to run it a little bit. So I just got to go to the DMV and get plates for it now. But it's done. And in case you're wondering, all in, it was about $3,300, because I spent another 300 on the trailer hitch, 250 on the power steering pump and alternator, and I had bought the tires previously for 200 plus some incidentals. So yeah, about 3,300. And it'll cost me another couple hundred to get it registered, and I'm going to put antique plates on it so it's titled forever, or registered forever. So yeah, all in and done. I think I met my goal of being cheaper than a side-by-side, and now I have something that's road legal. I don't know, you decide. What are side-by-sides going for where you are? A good solid used one here's easily 4,000 to 5,000, and they don't do 70 miles an hour, though they do have air conditioning sometimes, so trade-offs, I guess. But anyway, I'm gonna put it to work. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I did notice the first couple parts didn't have the viewership that the 66 did, and that's okay. You know, I'm doing this for me more than anything because I think it's fun to film. But next up, we'll be tackling another full restoration on my wife's truck.